Sounds good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the Julio Jaramillo from Evergreen Communities here. They have 30 communities, roughly 4,200 pads. Friend of mine for years now. Always looked up to this guy. He spoke with us at Seco before. Wealth of knowledge. And I personally have been battling through some code enforcement issues. And I knew I had to get Julio on, especially after I interviewed Sean. So Sean's got that over you. He beat you to the podcast.
I saw that. I saw that interview.
Yeah, it's funny, everybody tuning in. Julio pinged me and he was like, "Yo, what's up?" You got Sean, what about me? And I was like,
Get
hey,
me on
actually,
there.
I mean, so Julio,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, no.
we could talk for hours about many things, but today we're going to talk code enforcement and some heavy turnaround products. Julio, for those of you who don't know you, please give the elevator pitch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks. Well, I've been in the industry for really 30 years. I mean, I grew up in this industry right out of college, worked for Ron Singer and the Carlyle Group, not the hedge fund, and started there from accounts payable all the way up to director of acquisitions and CFO. So when I started Evergreen in 99, it was, just like many of your listeners are doing, just bootstrapping it together, grabbing some investors and putting in the sweat equity and making it work. And God willing, we're still here, about to hit almost 25 years, and the portfolio is great. It's strong. We're in great markets and have loved every bit of it. And the one thing I wanted to point out for your listeners is when you and I met, you guys were just getting started. And what really impressed me about you and we came together was that we both talked about doing the right thing for the industry, for the residents, for the code enforcers that we're going to talk about today. It all started about with not being a slimy slumlord pig. You don't make your money, and all your listeners, you don't make your money in the first year or even the second year. It's a long-term project. And when you get there, like many you told me, it just starts snowballing and you're just like, so the rewards are great. Taking care of your properties, and I have properties I've had for 20 plus years now. I can't believe it. That I still love, and they just keep cash flowing, and you run out of depreciation, so you keep buying. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a put your nose down, do the right thing, plan it and out. I see a lot of people 5 years and I got to sell this and flip it in with the investment funds. And if that's your path, I get it. But I like the long-term hold, and happy to talk about these code issues. Congratulations, first of all, to Ryan and his group for picking up a huge portfolio. That is amazing. I've seen you starting on the 40 and 50 space parks, and then you putting those together, and now look at you. So well done, and you're a prime example of what you can do in this industry. So yeah, I'm having a few issues going on with code enforcement. Some of them not even mobile home related, but the first one, I think some of you I just put on LinkedIn. I just spoke at my city council here in Burbank. I was actually on the road, so I apologize the vehicle background, but I was meeting with our CPA, wrapping up some K1s for our investors. But we rent control is they're trying to bring into Burbank, where I live, and we have no communities in California, and Burbank is just too much. It's a great city, but California is just overregulated. But so I went and spoke there, and those of you that want to look me up on LinkedIn and go hear it, I sort of went semi-ballistic and brought out all my Latin roots and told them, hey, you're not smarter than the free market, basically. So but let's relate this to manufactured housing and mobile home parks. So let me tell you, first, we have a big code enforcement issue in Florida, and I know Ryan just bought a portfolio there, but we have actually our largest community, Whispering Palms. It's 574 sites, 325 are MH and 275 are RV. And we've been there since 2003. We got hit by a hurricane. We lost 100 homes. We rebuilt it. The town allowed us to put RVs on mobile home sites to get through the post-hurricane years. So there's always good and bad with with some of these city councils and bureaucrats, as I call them. But the first thing I would remind everyone, and I know Ryan's got to do, is you got to be a good steward. You got to be a good citizen. So when you go up there and say and ask for this or do this or do that, you got to say, hey, look what I've done. Okay. When I took this over from owner, Joe Smith, this thing was a hellhole, and you guys had violations, and you guys had, it was an embarrassment to the city of Sebastian or whatever city it was. And this is just an example, because actually the prior owner of this did a great job with the property, not knocking him. But in other cities where we've done this, we've had to go in and show them, lead by example, and show, hey, I'm cleaning this up. I'm reinvesting in the town, in the city, in your affordable housing stock. I know you don't like the name mobile homes or trailer parks or whatever it is, but this is affordable housing. And a lot of times it's educating some of these people. I mean, we've even brought council people over and they say, hey, let's come give you a tour and come take a look at what we've done, what we have here, and go freely talk to some residents. And 9 out of 10, you're going to get a good feedback if you're doing the right thing. One or two will slam you. Well, yeah, they raised the rent, but then you got to remind them, yeah, but we just spent $200,000 repaving your roads too. But so the first thing is being that good steward. And I know Ryan does this, and I hope his listeners are taking that to heart, that you just can't be a pig. You can't be a jerk and jack the rents and not put money back in that property. It's not out of benevolence. It's out of your self-preservation. You want this asset to grow with you and the rents to grow right along with it. And you can't do that when you're just being a scumbag, a slumlord. So anyway, so this Indian River County utilities, this is a code from the utility department. And they came to us several years back and said, well, hey, guess what? The new updates to the Clean Water Act and this and that, we're getting infiltration in our sewer system. We're on public sewer. We're getting infiltration in our sewer system, and we're thinking or saying that it's coming from the mobile home parks in the town, because you guys are big users, and you're a lot of acreage of land, and so they pinned it on us, and we're like, well, how do you know that? And so we first thing we asked is, show us the meter, show us how much water and sewers coming through our property, Whispering Palms, and how much is going into your sewer plant that you're claiming is infiltration. And it's so bizarre, because this has gone on for several years now, and they have made us reinvest in the property. We've lined many of our lines with grout and lining, and we spent over probably $1.5 million on the sewer lines, and the property's great. It's amazing. It operates well. And most of this is one of my pet peeves of the free market is when you have a monopoly, and these cities are a monopoly. They can tell you what they want, and you don't have many options. You don't have competitors. They can come start fining you. They can require you to do things, and you're like, well, what can I do? Your final recourse is the law and lawsuits. And in this case, we filed a lawsuit against this town, and this is how brazen they are. So they told us we had infiltration. They send us this utility bill, and it doesn't even show usage. There's no beginning meter number and ending meter usage. It just says they list it as a past due item on a bill and say, you owe $9,000. This is direct from, this just came off the presses yesterday. We got our bill from December 19th through January 23rd of 2023. And it said $9,000 in infiltration costs. And we're like, okay, again, and this has been going back for years. Well, where did this number come from? Show us. And they refuse. They say, no, that's just what we're telling you. Now, the month before that, November say 18 through December 19th, the bill came with $0 in infiltration. So try to explain that to anybody who uses logic. Say, so we had zero infiltration in November and then $9,000 worth in December. And granted, there was some more rain, and we've plugged RV caps, and we've redone manholes. We've done everything to deal with these these supposed infiltration issues. And there's no logic to it. And we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with our attorneys. We've gone to hearings, and there's one person there that her name's Cindy. I won't give her a last name just for her protection, but she just has it out for us, whether it's because she doesn't like mobile home parks. She doesn't like, I mean, we're not nasty. We go in there and provide them all the documentation they want, and they still just want to keep poking at us and saying you have infiltration. So this has been all summed up between improvements and legal, a $2 million basically issue that has still not gone away. They said they were going to fine us. They never fined us because they know they don't have any grounds to, and they know we've rebuilt the system, but they still haven't taken us off of infiltration. And they put an order, basically a knock on our title saying, hey, you're under, I'm searching for the word, but you're basically in violation of this ordinance. And it's just horrific. But I'll shoot at some questions and then go to another, but that's a big one.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. I'll start here. United States of America, baby, land of the free, home of the brave, yet we are still afraid of what we don't know and don't understand. And I cannot agree with you more. I am a huge believer in the free market. The problem is we don't have a free market when there's one show in town. It's either crony capitalism, nepotistic, or despotic in a way, because it's one little local guy who owns a sign store who doesn't know anything about anything other than selling signs to other businesses. And you're going to tell me this man's going to make macroeconomic decisions, and microeconomic decisions, and understand law and this, that, and the other thing? No, they run it like the Wild West, and it's embarrassing. And when they have it out for you, it's the worst. And a big reason why I wanted to bring you on, Julio, to talk about this specifically is because a $2 million deal, I mean, that's just, or deal with code is just, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what that would do to the little guy, because that's what unites you and I. What has united us for years is we just have this never ending passion to do the right thing and to fight for affordable housing, because mobile home parks, whether people want to admit it or not, is one of the last avenues of affordable housing for reasonable pricing in this country. It just is. It just is. And if counties and NIMBYism would just go away, it would be, we could do a lot of good. And I want people who are good people to get off the sidelines and get in the game and not be intimidated by the wrong county or municipality or whatever, because you're right, it's a monopoly. And what I'll say is, as a little aside, is it's been popularized to just trash the landlord. It's the landlord raising my rents. And it's like, the landlord also is getting hosed by inflation, because prices to maintain septics are up. Prices for materials are up. Taxes are up. Like, interest rates are up, for crying out loud. Like, everything is going up. I don't want to have to raise your rent above and beyond whatever inflation is. But for crying out loud, when people act stupid, the 1 out of 100, and you have to take legal action, or you have to fight to get them out, or this, that, the other thing, or they're, setting fire to things, like, we have to bake in a little bit of profit. That's an okay thing. Profit's not a bad word. That's an okay thing. That does not mean that landlords are the bad guy. If there's a bad guy, and I think you'll agree with me here, Julio, it's the zoning and planning department. What needs to happen What needs to happen is we need to have more density. What we need to have is a lot less red tape to allow development of more units, because if demand is growing and supply is flat, price goes up. That's not an evil landlord. That's basic economics, right? So
Bingo. Yep.
if you look at a place like San Francisco, California, per capita, it has like the most amount of single family home residences in the country. It's something like 90% are single family homes, or something astronomical that pops off the page. And when you look at it, you're like, the answer is just density. The answer is
Yeah.
just more units to bring supply up. So when we look at this, the right answer isn't to gang up on the landlord. If we're ganging up on anybody, let's go hose the zoning department. But where question where I want to take this right now is, you know, how do you, first off, maybe this is a character question for you. Like, how do you keep
Sure.
your cool when you're dealing with people who are uneducated and on a power trip? Underpaid, and they're undereducated, and they have a power stick and they're going to whack you with you. How do you keep your composure, number one? And for the little guys and gals listening in who want to get into this space or are in this space and they don't have 2 million to shell out, like, how can they go about, like, what advice do you have for the little mobile home park owner who's getting attacked by corrupt local politicians?
Yeah. Yeah. No, great question. Well, first of all, the first thing you need to do is don't a lot of these politicians have a lot of jealousy too. They think, oh, what are you coming into our town, and you're from California, or you're from Michigan, or you're from wherever. And Ron Singer used to call them carpetbaggers. They're calling you a carpetbagger. You're coming in here and exploiting their town and their residents and taking this money back to California. So I always, first of all, come in and say, I'm I'm not I'm not the evil owner. I'm not the this is owned by an investment group. I'm represent the management company, which I do. Evergreen, we manage our own properties, and I represent the ownership group. And okay, so don't come in there and driving in your Porsche and pulling up and thinking you're a badass, and you got all this money. Even if you do, and go in there, you got to go in there at their level. And I walk around with my maintenance and my management people. I'm in jeans and a t-shirt if it's hot, or a sweater if it's cold, and I pick up trash. And that's just my personality. I was like, I see trash, I'm gonna pick it up. I don't care how much I'm paying somebody or you're paying me. And so you got to be at their level, at the blue collar Johnny Lunch bucket level, and the guy that owns a sign shop, like you mentioned, and educate them and tell them, look, I'm doing everything I can to meet. And once you start talking to them nicely, they feel bad. Like, man, as much as I don't want this park here, or I want to get Julio to do this, he's doing everything I ask, and get back to them. Just, you can't have arrogance. You just can't. You can't. You're a fool. So you got to go there at their level and help try to educate them. And you're still going to be fighting the battles. But like you mentioned, where you say, hey, you know, we're not just these landlords making a huge profit. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of costs that go into this, and a lot of things that happen, and you got to recognize that and show them. Look at the tree trimming. This storm that just went through New Hampshire, as example, one of our properties, and there's trees on there. And the first thing, people have freeze ups, even when it's the resident's own responsibility. They come looking to us. Well, you come looking to us for the answer and for the payment, and even things act of God. And but when rents go up, you're complaining about it. Well, there's a lot of costs in there. So first thing is image. Go in there and be reasonable. And then the second part of it is, and I'm gonna give you one other example here. So I get it on the 2 million. I mean, this is a big asset, and this was 20 years in when we were able to spend this $2 million on this, and of course we didn't want to. But we've had the small properties. We bought one up in New Hampshire, 156 site community, all potholes on a hill, but just good area. And we went in there, and now New Hampshire has implemented a semi form of a rent control that they have you put on your rent increase letters that that if you increase your rents over $15, arbitrary, doesn't matter if your rents are 200 and you're going up 15, or your rents are 500 and you're going up 15. If you increase your rents over $15 and more than 51% of the residents sign a petition to go to arbitration, you need to provide on the letter who's going to handle it, and the landlord has to pay for it. So we had to put that on there, and we went in, spent $200,000, did all new roads. On top of that, the residents had these little vouchers for their trash bags. They would have to buy $3 a bag voucher and take their bags to the landfill, which wasn't happening when we bought the property. And we went and did inspections behind some people's yards. There were 20 bags of trash. And so I'm telling the inspector, I'm like, you shouldn't be as much concerned about our rent increase. So we went in and put in a $35 rent increase after doing $200,000 of road work. We added trash service at about $2,900, call it $3,000 a month, to come in and do regular weekly trash service, because these people weren't paying for their trash they were just storing it. The majority were just being lazy about it, storing trash on the property. So you got to just go back to that logic and tell these so now we're about to go between this arbitration board, and I'm happy to do it. I'm saying, you're lucky it was only $35. My numbers should have been a $70, $60, $70 rent increase. But we know that you're all, and you have to remind your investors and the owners that, I spoke to this at one of the George Allen conferences, it doesn't matter if you're $100, $200, $300 under market. Your residents are mostly living check to check, or they're on Social Security, or they're on disability, or they're working at the Walmart or something, and they're not going to absorb $100, $150 rent increase. It's foolish. You're kidding yourself. And again, that goes back to the pig factor. You're being an idiot. You're calling attention to yourself from these towns and these rent control boards that are now hitting Colorado. It started in New York. It's going around, the nation. And so you got to be a responsible owner, so you can say, hey, look at me, councilman. I'm doing the right thing. I can't vouch for anyone else, but you're coming at me, and I'm trying to do the right thing and provide good, clean, safe, adequate, affordable housing in the city of X. And and so when you do that, at least you can say that and put your face to it, and go up there and say, I'm doing my part. Now you're putting the screws on me and driving me out of business. You're driving my rent increase because you're making me do X, B, Y, and Z. And so you got to really just narrow that down, and then educate the council people. I mean, you got to go to some of those meetings. You got to call them. When they call you, you can't, as much as, again, they're bureaucrats, and like we both said, they have this unwarranted control over your property, that but you just got to sort of respond and say, okay, and have them prove it to you. Well, can I see that in the ordinance in writing? Can you show that to me? Because you'll get someone new will come in, and the same property, Whispering Palms in Florida, it's right along US 1, and a new council member came in, Betty Davis, and that was her real name, and she was saying, we need to put a agricultural barrier along US 1 so the back of our mobile homes aren't seen from the road. And we're like, okay, well, show us where that is in the ordinance. I mean, and we had to plant palms and bushes and spent over $30,000 to put in a watering system in Florida for the summers, and just to shield the homes from US 1. And it was vaguely in the ordinance. It really wasn't. But when our attorney said, well, by the time you fight this and you're going to go after, this town, and it's going to somewhat beautify your property anyway, just get it done. And we did. But you can just see it's someone. And then we found out, with our manager who lived there, and she's like, oh yeah, Betty drives by here every day to and from her home.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. and there you go. And then you have this person says, I don't want to look at, I don't want to look at mobile homes, and so I want them to put a barrier. So you get the idea. But yeah, it's in each city, there's no conformity. Each city's different, each bureaucrat's different, so you're having to sort of maneuver around it. But at the same time, don't let it scare you, the new operators that are coming in and say, man, I mean, every business, every real estate is going to have zoning issues, and whether it's industrial or whatever. But so don't let it scare you, but do your due diligence, find out, all right, what am I dealing with? We even do, when we go in under contract doing our due diligence, we go in and visit the town and get the temperature of, how's this town feel about this property over here, Twin Valley Estates. Oh, that they like that you guys are there, and they want to make sure you're not going to redevelop it into something else, because they need a lot of these towns and owners, the buyers should remember, they need to meet for HUD funding and everything else certain amount of affordable units. So
Yep.
some of them don't want you to go away, or some of them want you to expand it. So you got to put yourself in their shoes, and what's their motivation? What do they want? What are they doing? What is it? And I can go into another story after I'll let you speak. I talk a lot, but I always think, who's my audience? Who's my reader? What do they want? What do they want to hear? What are they looking for? And sort of drive your property and your narrative in that direction, as long as it makes sense.
I love everything you just said. Again, so much to unpack there. What I would start by saying is, just I'll echo the frustration. I've had a local guy shut down my ability to get permits on electrical unless I hired his son, who happened to be an electrician.
That's great.
And the good news is his son was great and was reasonably priced, so it wasn't a big deal. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is everywhere. I mean, the sign reference I made earlier with the councilman with the sign company, that's a real situation I have at a real property of mine. And I could go on for hours, I feel like, about how if anybody just picked up a book or a study on rent control anywhere, I mean, it's very convincing to the point where I would almost say it's just a straight fact that rent control just doesn't work. It backfires hard, because what you're going to have happen here is lack of investment. I mean, you're seeing it in New York State right now, where people can't sell their properties because no one wants to touch it.
Yep.
And they don't have the capital to go and reinvest and fix potholes and do things, and they can't raise their rent. So it's almost like, if you're going to do rent control, it's one step towards communism, because the government might as well just go ahead and run it, because private dollars aren't going to want to touch that. So it is absolutely devastating. However, I can also see the flip side of that coin, which is there are a lot of idiots out there. And you and I, Julio, we've bonded over this for years. When you have that one idiot or that one company that makes a mistake and they overraise capital, or they're over optimistic in their underwriting, and they go, oh no, I have to raise rents, or even just, it may not be, like I said, it may not even be greed. It may just be stupidity or over optimism, where, I can just go in and raise rent $200, whatever. It's, $500 below market. So $200 isn't a big deal to people who live paycheck to paycheck, right? Like, people who don't, like, are you even thinking, those are the folks, I think you and I together, as with this podcast and this group that we've really put together, like, we want to usher in good landlords, because it's the greedy, stupid, over-optimistic people who are going to force the hand of politicians to put some kind of stop on, whether it's greed, stupidity, whatever you want to call it. I get it. You're going to force their hand. And, like, again, with what I said earlier about maybe the bad guy isn't the landlord, maybe it's the zoning department. Like, maybe the answer is to partner with the landlord and the owners of these affordable housing units. If you're not going to allow new affordable housing units to be built, or you're going to do something like get mad and whack someone with the power stick because you want, to look at agriculture on your way to work instead of the back of a mobile home, and then all of a sudden the mobile home park's got to raise their rent to pay for that, maybe the bad guy here isn't the landlord at all. Maybe the people we should be working with and encouraging to do the right thing are the landlords.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it's like, I'm dealing with an issue right now. I'm winning, but at what price? Like, I just had to shell out $6,000 for one case that I won because the city, I can't recoup attorney costs even when I win if it's a municipality or county in certain situations.
Yeah.
So imagine that. You're right. You've never passed a bar exam in your life. You've read the piece of paper. You've read what they're saying, and you're like, this is a layup of a case, and you have two attorneys on it who read it, and they're like, this is a layup of a case. You go to court and you win, and they're not going to, and you got to shell out $6,000 because of some local idiot. This happens again and again and again. And I would love to hear your take on it, Julio, but mine is when you're dealing with local, stupid, uneducated, mean, and vindictive, greedy, corrupt, and even if they're perfectly fine, and I have situations where I legitimately have code enforcement issues that I tell all my employees, code enforcement's your number one priority always. That and safety, and they really go hand in hand always. Code enforcement person shows up, that's now your job. You follow them around, you get them what they need, you make people safe. But I've had this happen on more than one occasion where they show up to something legitimate, and instead of communicating with me, they walk around the whole property and they go, I don't like that, I don't like that, boom. And all of a sudden you have 30 orange stickers on homes that maybe have a violation, and maybe you have a handful of true violations you should address, and then 9 months later finally they sign off on everything. But Julio, what I've done, and I'd love your take on it, is I love the show up in your work boots and your work pants. I love that. Not your Porsche. And if you don't have a Porsche, even better, right? You need to be able to relate these folks and show them you're not some evil, greedy landlord sitting in a high rise in New York City. You're one of the local boys or gals, and you need to be communicative. You need to be fast. I have some issues right now. I won't say the county, but they've been incredibly reasonable. And the attorneys that we hire just in case are really largely not necessary. They're there just in case someone just tries to whack us with a power stick. What they told me, which just stuck out like a sore thumb, was they're like, we just want compliance. And for the reasonable people out there, the reasonable municipalities and counties and code enforcement departments and building code departments, I couldn't agree more, because there are plenty of slumlords out there who make their job a living hell. And for you to be kind, not arrogant, one of the boys, one of the gals, quick to respond, show them that your heart is truly in the right place. Maybe they're still going to mess with you for 9 months, but eventually they'll go away. I would love to hear your take on that, because that's always really been my strategy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But it's funny. There's so many different municipalities and views that we bought some properties in Ohio once, and the owner was completely out of compliance, and he was a nasty SOB to everybody in the town. And they sort of just left him alone. They were like, yeah, they're like, we're not going to get anywhere with this guy. So then we came in and we said, hey, we're going to clean this up anyway. We want to get into compliance. And it almost was like, oh, these guys are really nice suckers. Let's have them do this, this, and this. And all of a sudden they went from not bothering the jerk owner that wasn't doing anything to squeezing us to, okay, well, let's get them to do more and do this and paint this and add stairs here and do this. And we're like, you weren't doing that to the previous owner. And they're like, well, yeah, because he never responded. Okay, so now we're responding, and we're getting so there is
the problem is the local government.
Yeah. Oh, it always is. But one other area where we're having trouble, and it's in New York, and I want your listeners to hear about this one, where so we're in Corning, New York, Western New York, and the town brought city sewer along the front of the property, and we're on septic, and our septics are working fine, and the city couldn't get a mandate to force everybody to hook up. So they were encouraging people to hook up. But we were like, well, if we do that, we got to run sewer lines through our whole property. It's going to be mega expensive. And they even said you can hook up for free, but no per pad hookup fee. But we still got to run sewer lines because off a septic. And so they all of a sudden started working, and this is alleged, but we've got plenty of mental, sort of evidence and emails and stuff where they all of a sudden got the Department of Health to issue a whole different, this is state now, they got the Department of Health to issue an order that said, you can no longer, when a septic tank fails, we're no longer going to let you replace it. You need to hook up to sewer.
Because yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So because there's sewer in front of your property and there's no reason, and they'll get into the climate issues. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, who knows? But they forced us to now, as a septic fails, we got to connect into their sewer, and the town's just cheering it on because they get that many more users onto their system. So they are just as evil as a bad landlord if depending on the people.
No one wants to gang up on them. And it's so unbelievably frustrating to be like us, good stewards. You used that phrase earlier, and I can't agree with that more. There is nothing more that I want to do on my deathbed outside of friends and family. What I want to reflect on my deathbed is the good I did with the time I had here. And we elect these people, we put them in office, and a lot of times we don't even, because there's a lot of our democracy that's not democratized. And these people are supposed to be taking our hard-earned tax dollars and doing a public good with it. And they're not. And they're using it to make their commute to work a little bit better. To be fair, if she listens in, I don't know who that Betty woman you were talking about is earlier.
No, she long retired, but no, you're right. You're right. But yeah, they all have personal agendas. And a lot of things we talked about here, I spoke at our rent control city council meeting here in Burbank, and it was the same thing. They have these public forums and everybody's speaking against it, but they still have their personal agendas. Like, no, I'm an activist and I want this rent control. And you're like, but you're not listening to the facts. You're not listening to the whether they call it listening to the science of the economic science of supply and demand. And like you mentioned earlier, if you don't have the supply, prices are going to go up regardless. It's the way it is. It happens with eggs, it happens with gasoline, and it happens with housing. So it's frustrating as heck, and there's no one easy answer. But I think, like you said, the things we got to do is be the good stewards, be at their level, look for what are they trying to accomplish? Is this, like you said, I want to get my son hired to do your electrical work, or is this because
I wish they don't want to look? It was not.
No, I believe me. I see stuff like that all the time. I was gonna say your sign guy probably wanted you to replace your sign so you'd bring him business. But yeah, you got to put on that hat. I'm in small town America. These people have been here all their lives, and you're coming in like an alien, dropping in out of outer space, buying a chunk of acreage of their land, and they're pissed off. That, believe it or not, they're like, why is this mofo gonna make money off of my city here, my little town that I golf with all these people and know all the people in town? And who the hell is this Julio guy coming in here out of California buying land and wherever, South Bloomfield, Ohio, where we own a community, and then they'll be like, so you got to just sort of always keep that in mind. Hire local their local contractors or consultants. We're doing an expansion now. We're going before the city, and we hired a local guy that used to be on the city council, and he's an engineer. And so you got to hire those inside guys, do it all legit, don't pay anybody off and get thrown in jail. But hire the local people and and go and talk to them. Say, what do they want here? Give me the local scuttlebutt. What's going on? Oh man, they hate your trailer park here, boy. You got too much drugs going on in that town. And like, well, we just bought it. We're gonna clean it up. Well, you better start doing that before you come in here and ask for to expand that community, because nobody likes, Hickory Farms, whatever the property is over here. And so then okay, they're talking to you. They're telling you, go take care of this, do that, and you don't even have to finish it. You can, hey, look at the progress we've made. This is the the plan we're doing. I mean, one of the guys that I've been impressed with, Scott Roberts, Roberts Communities, and a lot of these people will take over their parents' business and just run it into the ground or spend the money, and he's taking it to a whole different level and saying, hey, I'm not only going to build manufactured housing, I'm going to build some badass housing that and granted, he's in great cities like Austin and places like that, but doing that and taking it to another level and showing the people that, hey, this is a good alternative. I never even knew manufactured housing, it's something I could live in, so there's a lot of communicating that has to go on with these people.
I couldn't agree more. Listen, we could talk for hours about this.
Yeah.
I would love to hit on some heavy value add stuff, but I think actually what I would rather ask you, given how long you've been in the industry, you've seen it ebb and flow and change. I mean, you were there when anybody and everyone could buy a mobile home, and then all of a sudden no one could, and the industry imploded in like the early 2000s. And you've seen the unreal valuation hikes we've seen in the last couple years. As you're looking at this space, obviously it's way different, because when you got started, the hype story wasn't there. The hype story didn't really hit and really take off to, I think, the middle 2010s, like right when Ian and I got started. And it's just, I remember reading and doing the boot camps and the things and the stuff in 2015 and being like, gosh, this material is dated. And that was 2015. That was almost a decade ago. So, and I was talking to Ian last night, and now that since he's gotten out of the industry and he's gone into development, and he's like, oh dude, how's it changed in the year I've been gone? And I'm like, if you could believe it, a lot, because we haven't experienced what happens when you have these mom and pops with no debt on their property, who've been pumped full of these pie in the sky numbers by brokers and wholesalers and just mailers and things and stuff, when rates are now way higher. So things don't pencil out anymore, and you can't really pay for upside, which a lot of shops have been doing. And Ian and I, we always bounce this off for each other. We're like, man, could we have gotten started today like we did in 2015? And I've, up until now, I've been able to confidently say, oh yeah, of course. Like anytime you're going to make a bet on yourself and move into a mobile home park and learn from the front lines, teach yourself Spanish, be your own property manager, you're always going to have a leg up on your competition. But with interest rates where they are, killing cash flow, how do you, obviously the answer is we will survive as an industry, right? Like we'll adjust to it. But given your wealth of experience, seeing things ebb and flow through a more than one economic crisis, like where do you kind of see this space going?
Well, great question. Because I mean, when I was in this, even in the late 90s, I mean, buying communities with Ron Singer for him at 11, 12 caps, and interest rates were 7-8%. So, and dealers would pay us for our vacancies. They're like, can I put a home in your site, please? I can sell these all day long. And all I need is someone's shotgun as a down payment, and Green Tree will finance them. So I mean, we've seen everything and so many different things, but I would say in the end, it's a great asset class, because they're not building, they're not building that many more of them. I mean, some people are getting into development, and it's great. And the cost of that development, it's going to be a nice higher end community. But so it's definitely harder to find them. I mean, with all these new people in the mix, it's definitely harder to find them. You got to rely on in the end, economics. I mean, when nobody could afford homes, and then 21st Mortgage came in and did the cash program, and we can get homes and fill our communities. And we know it's not cheap, and we know Buffett and 21st is making a killing. But we had to look at, well, it's either that or a vacant site. I'm either getting zero rent, or I'm going to pay 21st to finance me a home, but I'm going to get my site rent and eventually going to pay off this home or sell it. So you got to be nimble. You got to be flexible. You got to always remain an entrepreneur. Don't get into these, well, this is the way we've always done it, or this is corporate America, or this is, I mean, that's how we changed, and we couldn't, I didn't want to snap up and have all the mailers and all this that you talked about going around. So we're like, well, how else are we going to find deals, those undercover deals that really make sense? And that's how I started the joint ventures that I've done now with Sean. I've done with a fellow, Joe Roy, who we own 4 communities in New Hampshire. John Briggs, we're on our 6th, and he's out right now in Mississippi looking for more. Is to not get greedy and say, all right, you're bringing me the deal, I'm bringing you expertise and capital, and let's do the 1 + 1 = 3. Together, we're going to have an asset that individually I would have never seen, and you would have never had the ability to buy. And so you got to get creative working with sellers, seller financing. Let them say, all right. We had a seller right now who someone had put in his ear, oh, your park's worth $8 million. It's not. It's barely worth 6. And he still hasn't sold it. And we still coming back to him, say, hey, we're gonna take care of your property. We're not going to retrade you. We're not going to play games with you. When we get under contract, we come with the intention to close. We're not going to try to resell this. So it's all about just being straight, direct, and redirecting your approach, and not going down the squirrely, slimy side. You don't need that many of these. That's what I tell. Like I was telling Sean, Sean would send me this. What about this? I'm like, Sean, you got to get yourself into 4, 5, 6 of these with your sweat equity and our capital, and take care of our investors. And from there, those are going to grow. And then you'll find another one. We buy now 1 or 2 a year. And trust me, the cash flow is, I'm now investing in a bunch of other stuff because let me. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, what you've got to really remain entrepreneurial and know why you got in this business, and the deals are going to resurface. Even some of the people who overpaid, those are going to come back up. There's just a certain amount of communities out there, and a certain amount of operators, and some people worry about competition. I welcome it, because good operators like yourself, or the Sun communities of the world, people are going to go up there and they're going to bring our image and our level up, and the rents, your competitive rents in the market. And so those communities, and those are going to fill up. And so when people say, wow, that's a great community over there. Okay, well, go look at, Apple Valley, Julio's community over here at Evergreen owns, and they may have some homes they're selling, and you can do that rising tide. So yeah, it's not easy, but I get it. A lot of these people think they're going to walk into this great deal. And I've heard you telling Sean, it's going to take you a year or 2 to even find that first deal. And then all those relationships will start coming into fruition.
I love it. Listen, I want to echo what you said about generosity, and I'll throw in kindness, because I think what I've seen in this space, a lot of folks who've kind of plateaued in terms of what they were able to buy, what they're buying. A lot of times they had a wonderful relationship sitting in their lap, and they got greedy. And the same goes for their residents. They get greedy. Oh, I can easily jam $250 lot rents here and not reinvest in the communities. And man, when it comes to equity, when it comes to your residents, when it comes to just all the way around, as long as you can put food on the table for yourself, and you can find a way to get a fair deal, generosity is the way to lean, in my opinion, because I think at the end of the day, an unfair deal, whether it's a resident or an equity or whatever, eventually when somebody feels like they have the raw end of the stick, they're gonna wake up and they're gonna make the phone call. And
Yep.
that has happened to me before. And the good news is this individual was incredibly reasonable, as was I, if you'd ask him. And we're still friends to this day. And we're like, we'll definitely do another deal. But he presented an equity structure for me, and I was like, what? That sounds great. Okay. And when he was like, wait a minute, that we did that wrong. Eventually I was like, hey, well, you signed up for this. And then I went, you know what? No, that's not fair. Generosity saves relationships, and kindness when it comes to your residents and these code enforcement, and even if folks don't deserve your kindness still always wins. And I cannot
Yeah.
agree with you more. With my mentorship program, like, people ask me all the time, why do you give away so much information for free? And the answer, like, aren't you afraid of welcoming in competitors and losing to deals? And my mentee, Craig Napoliello, friend of mine, great guy, beat me on a deal. And I remember we were grabbing drinks in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he was like, dude, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, I told you when you signed up for the mentorship program, if you beat me to a deal, I'm going to be proud of you, not angry, because if
Right.
you're in control, I know the property is going to be handled right. And if I'm in control, I'm going to be generous and kind, and I'm going to work really hard because I really care about this. Where that property is not in the hands of someone who's just going to jam rents and leave potholes and trash and drugs and stuff all the time because the money is coming in. So I think, I'm not afraid to welcome in good competition into the space, because we want that. We want,
Hmm.
municipalities and governments looking at us and going, gosh, those mobile home parks are nicer and quieter than some apartment complex we have. Because I will tell you this, there is a
Hmm.
city that I took over. There's a little itsy bitsy town of Ranlow, North Carolina, in Gaston County that I own in. And I took over a mobile home park. Wonderful owners, love them to death. They just if you ask them, they got tired of running it. And when it was time to sell, it was time to sell. And it got out of control for them, and they were ready to bow out. And Ian and I were ready to get in there and rock and roll. And we fought through some really difficult stuff. But to this day, if you go to the town of Ranlow and you talk to the local folks, they may not directly tell you, but you could tell they're like, this is actually a really nice community now. And it was
Yeah.
because we fought through all the heavy turnaround issues. It was because we led with kindness and generosity. We charge a fair rent. I know you're always going to have people who are like, oh, you charge too much. Fine. Name a product out there that you don't have at least one person who says you charge
Yeah.
too much. A basic supply demand pricing curve. Like, there are
Right.
people that are under this line who are the people, no matter what your strawberries, bananas, cars, whatever, the people below this on the pricing optimization chart are the people going, you charge too much. Like,
Yeah, of
of course,
course.
that always
Yeah.
happens. That's basic
Yeah.
economics. But what I'll say is, like, it is a battle worth fighting for. And I've been so proud to kind of model what I do after what you've done so well, Julio, over the years. I've really looked up to you a lot. I mean that, happy to say it publicly. Um,
Th-
Man,
Thank you.
we could talk for so many hours about so many things. I really hope, if you've listened in, ladies and gentlemen, you're not scared of local code enforcement folks building code, municipalities. Corruption does happen. Unreasonable, unruly people happen. Period. It doesn't matter if it's contractors you're working with, or bad residents, or this, that, or the other thing. Like, you're always it's a people business first, and it always will be. I know we're
Yep.
trying to make, where our markets are desperate for yield, and insurance companies, private equity firms are trying to securitize, in effect, real estate to package it and sell to retail investors. Like, I get that, but it is not a financial business at its core. It is a people business. It always has been. It always will be. And people like Julio
Hmm.
and myself, we're here to help you. We don't need anything from you. We're going to be generous, whether we partner on a deal with you or not. We just want good people in this space. It is, in a lot of regards, like a step above homelessness, and
Yeah.
if these go away, where are people going to go? So I feel like it is the onus is on us until we get help from the zoning and planning departments and developers are able to come in and increase density and supply, if demand is going to continue to grow, the onus is on us, the landlords, to really do the right thing and be fair. Again, I'm not saying give away the farm. I'm not saying become a communist. I'm saying let a free market be a free market, not crony capitalism, actual capitalism. Where we can actually go in and charge a fair rent and give good, clean, affordable housing. And that happens, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Because you got into this space and you helped people like Julio and I push out slumlords and win over these municipalities. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be scared. Julio,
Absolutely.
how can people find you?
Great. Well, thanks. I'm at my email is Julio, Julio at evergreencommunities.com. That's communities plural, Julio at evergreencommunities.com. We have a website, evergreencommunities.com as well. Just like get feedback on deals and open to doing deals with people that make sense. And we're not going to buy everywhere or everything, and you don't need to own everything. You just got to own and be responsible. And I agree. I echo everything Ryan said. Don't be afraid of it. This business has plenty of those ups and downs. It could be your own manager stealing from you. That you just got to put stuff in place to protect against that. And you're gonna do great. In the end, the fundamentals, if you do the right thing, it's gonna be right for you as well.
Julio, I can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
So
it's been
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, appreciate being on.
Rock and roll.
Anytime. Happy to do it anytime. Thanks, Ryan.